Well, over on your maintainer side, once again, another outstanding class. And in this particular group, I'm 4, 5, maybe even 6 deep of ones that I think are extra good. For me, the red heifer wins this particular class. As soon as she hit the end gate, you talk about one that's loaded with shape and power and body and yet still feminine. And when you get this one on the move, she's as good and attractive and settled in her top line. She's as athletic, genuine, true, and honest in terms of her build as any in this particular class. I guess for me, in her age, maybe she's just on the borderline of being plenty big, but I still think that one has all the right parts and pieces and uses them correctly. It's hard for me not to grab a hold and gravitate to this one in this particular class. The young man's heifer in second. I think his time and maturity plays a factor in these cattle. This one's going to work her way to the top end of the class as these cattle mature. I wish she didn't want to act so foul on the halter, because when she does, that's when you want to get your worst look of her. The young man gets her stopped, parked, and put together and gives you this look right here. You talk about one that's so elegant fronted. The way she lays her neck onto the apex of her shoulder is absolutely ideal. Good in her top line, good and soft in her rib cage. You get in behind her. She doesn't overwhelm you with width, and I know a lot of that's going to come with time and maturity. As I said in my previous statements, I think when that one makes a big bread, she's going to be awfully hard to turn in this particular group. The young lady's heifer in third. I love them built like this one, so genuine and true, and they're honest in terms of her condition. I love her femininity, the way she's put together in her head carriage, her neck, and through the point of her shoulders. Awesome, soft in her rib. She just simply gets outdone, just in width, power, just performance and body in this particular class. But I wanted to make sure this one was here in my top trio because I think this one exudes quality from all aspects. The young lady's heifer that comes next, big boned and big footed. You love the power and you love the shape in this one. You get in behind her, so three-dimensional, not only in terms of her rib, but in her muscularity as well. With that being said, comparatively, she offers just a bit more shoulder as you view her up front. I'd like to tone her down and expand her right there in her fore rib ever so slightly. Once again, a nice female that comes next. The next young lady's heifer that comes in this group, I pulled here on the walk as you study her one on the go. I wish she just planted those rear two just a nickel better to the ground. At times she wants to get up, wants to get rigid off of those rear two, wants to swivel there in her loin and hip juncture, just like to make her go with just a shot more freedom of ease. Big-bodied and powerful. I think that one will make a nice cow prospect for this young lady as she matures. The same theme follows in the heifer that comes next, big-boned and footed, rugged in her kind. I'd like to make her just a shot more feminine as you view her through her throat latch, chest, and right at the point of her shoulder. Awfully nice female that comes there next. A femininely designed heifer comes next. I just want to see more to her. Gets just a bit plainer in her type and kind compared to those that precede her. Heifer that comes next, a long-bodied female that's got some muscularity to her. She gets just a bit dry in terms of her rib compared to those that precede her. Gets just a bit awkward off of those rear two when on the move. And the young man's heifer I finish out with, one that's got a beautiful silhouette. I love her femininity. She gets just a bit frailer in terms of her bone work. Just like to see a bit more to her in terms of power for this one to move up any higher. Good group. Congratulations to each of these exhibitors.
Up next for the maintainer females will be Class 799D. Here's the results on Class 799C. First place 1264, Steck Katie C, 710 EET, Sarah Sullivan, Dunlap, Iowa. In second, 1254, TSSC, Sugar and Spice, 779 EET, Benjamin Nickel, McPherson, Kansas. In third, 1266, WSCC, Sydney's Dream, 196 EET, Sydney Sandridge from Denard, Arkansas. In fourth, 1258, Hold Camp Miss Money, 15E, Morgan Maloney, Hooker, Oklahoma. Fifth, 1263, BBR Enchanted Lady, 799 EET, Ansley Lee Morandi, York, Nebraska. 6th, 1255, WLFF Miss Fran, 37E, Annie Herr, Fontenelle, Iowa. 7th, 1265, LCP Whiskey Girl of 14ET, Kylie Roberts, Elizabeth, Colorado. 8th, 1262, Geig Miss Ace, 411E, Justin Siefker, Delphos, Ohio. 9th, 1267, Dup Excellente, 727, Hunter Morton, Stratford, Oklahoma. Let's go down and get the results on this Class 799D with our judge, Dr. Scott Shockey, Westmoreland, Kansas.
All right, another good set of big, heavy breds, and you know, I guess I think back to that heifer that won the first class, that little May heifer, first division actually, and I think about what she could look like in my mind, and to me, I think we got kind of a carbon copy right here in front of us, just a bigger, more mature model than her. At least I hope. I think maybe I totally missed that one. I like that calf a great deal, and I think she fits the same mold as this yearling right here in front of us. Beautiful from the side. You can't make one of much of any breed any nicer in the way that she's shaped up in the top of her shoulder, the kind of turn she has to her rib, and I absolutely love that hip design. Her tail head sets in her right. She's one that's got performance and yet still looks like a female. And again, there's not very many show cattle that you'd say aren't fat enough. And that one, she has some bloom on her, but yet she has it kind of hit in her a little differently than like the heifer here in second. I think that one's just really, really nice. And again, she just reminds me so much of that heifer that won the first division. This one, I'm going to just go out on a limb. I'm going to say the problems I see in this heifer here are going to be a little more man-made than what I think the heifer really is. I think we've got this one too fat. She's starting to paddle out of her front end. It's opened her up in her shoulder. She's got that fat kind of deposited up in her chest. Again, here's one that's just enormous in body and hip and bone and mass. And I think if we could have just leaned her up, freshened her up, then I think she makes a very logical second. And I know how it is with show cattle. We love to feed them, and sometimes we just can't exactly figure out when is the point to shut it off. And I think we went beyond the point on her, and she just waddles too much. Now, structurally, though, again, I would say out here she's just a little more right today in the way that she's handling her hind leg. If as a stand, I would probably argue that would be right. But today as they travel, I think she does move better than the heifer here in third. Honestly, I had them switch for the longest time because I like the conditioning on this heifer. I think this one is really real in terms of her body, the shape of her neck on the top side, and her shoulder blade, her chest. Everywhere you want to look, this heifer's a lot leaner than what we have here in front of her. Again, we put her on the travel, and maybe I'm overboard on hind legs, but I can't live with that in second hole. And she's a little plain too up front. Her head, her neck, maybe not quite as fancy, but that's the decision here in this class. Another nice heifer in fourth, obviously not quite the mass and power, but she's long, she's pretty, she's got some refinement to her. She just needs a bit more horsepower here in this set of big yearlings. Very good class, and I think an exceptionally nice one up on the top end.
Up next on the Charolais side of the junior heifers in this division, 721B. Junior yearling heifers. Here's the results on Class 721A. First place 503, AWR BB Queen 527D, Rayleigh Downing, Troy, Texas. Second 501, WDZ Skittles 6037 PET, Paige Netsky from Lamberton, Minnesota. In third 504, BRCHE TR Dory 6501, Cagney Effling, Highmore, South Dakota. Fourth 502, JD April Chill 650D, Hunter Riggins, Leedy, Oklahoma. As I mentioned in the ring, this will be Class 721B junior yearling heifers. These born March 3rd through March 24th, 2016. We have one more class in this division, and we'll have our champion junior heifer selection, then the grand champion Charolais heifer selection. Our judge on that side of the show ring, Dr. Scott Shockey from Westmoreland, Kansas.
Well, over on your maintainer side, once again, another outstanding class. And I guess for me, there's a lot more differences in type and kind than the last group we had. But for me, the young lady's heifer that sorts herself to the top, just beautiful in terms of her design, an elegantly look female. She's so feminine and refined through her front third, chiseled in her shoulder, and yet so soft and robust in terms of her rib cage. I really like the way she hooks up from her forerib all the way back into her flank. Good in terms of her structure and flexibility at the ground, and adequate when you get in behind her in terms of muscularity. She don't overwhelm you in power, but I think she's got so many neat things in terms of pattern and look and structural integrity. It's hard for me to deny this one to win this particular class. My source of power in this group is the young man's heifer here in second. Beginning at the surface, she's the big bone, big footed heifer of the group, and there she only gets progressively wider as you study her in the upper third of her skeleton. I love the shape, width, and substance when you get in behind her. With that said, a female, as you study her up front, she gets a bit more masculine as you view her right through her skull, the shape to her neck, and the flatness to her shoulder. I'd like to just redesign all those things and make her just a shot more feminine as a whole as you view her there through her front third. The young lady's heifer that comes in second, just beautiful in terms of her look, feminine and elegant in her design, sound in terms of her structural integrity. Compared to the duo that precede her in this particular group, I just need to see more to her. She's a bit flatter and more upright in her rib cage, and you get in behind her, she doesn't have the extra width as those two that precede her in this particular class. Young lady's heifer that comes next, I like this one on the standstill. Gets just a bit uncoordinated at times when you study her on the go, wants to get closed up from hock to ground when you get right in behind her. I'd like to see just a bit more to her as you study her from front to rear. We see that in the next two heifers that comes next. They're both built similar in their type and kind, and I put these two heifers in a group. They get just a bit too powerful for me. You study them down their top. They're loaded in terms of shape and muscularity. They're big-boned and big-footed cattle. For me, both of them get just a bit awkward as you study them in their spine when on the go. Just like to make them more relaxed in their structure as I set them into motion. Young man's heifer that finishes out your group, one that you like from the silhouette, gets just a bit closed up from behind. Like to see some more shape, power, and substance. Give her a bit more width as you view her at the ground. Good group of cattle. Congratulations to each of these exhibitors.
All right, again, it's good when you're able to land on something with this kind of quality up here on the top end. And I mean, obviously a little bigger statured heifer, but I think what really helps for me to get these two sorted up here on top, it's the design of the front third here of the first heifer. You can see all these young ladies that have to show pretty hard, but this one don't have to work near as hard to keep her head up as the heifer here in second. And there's a reason for it, because she's built that way. She's built more correct in the way her neck sets up into her shoulder blade, the angle to her shoulder. This one has a world of quality too. I like the length and the ability to not only have that length, but also have the same kind of volume and yet smoothness. Everything's laid into her skeleton just right. Probably not as wide-based, you know, as a heifer here in second. She's not as big and burly in her bone like the heifer here in second. But again, all that just kind of translate, for me anyway, into a heifer that's just a little bit more refined and feminine. And there's some pretty neat pieces of this next one. She's really strong at the ground in terms of foot and bone. She's got tremendous width in her chest and up into her top. You know, there's a lot of muscle to her. Again, probably doesn't move quite right for me out of her front end. I'm going to call her just a nickel steep up in her shoulder. It's got her head kind of set down a little low out of it. And again, all that to me is probably just a problem we have up into her front third. A lot of refinement and femininity here in the heifer in third. Again, just not quite the horsepower. She's not built quite as smooth down her top and out of her tail head as the two heifers we have winning this class.
Catches up on results here. First of all, Charolais side, 721B. Result on the junior yearling heifers. First place, 507. WCCCC. Sweetheart, 6350P. Rachel Booth, Miami, Oklahoma. And second, 510. CH Miss Mora, 209D. Ty Ann Tellefson, Warden, Washington. Third, 555. TR Miss Debbie, 6750 DET. Cagney Effling, Highmore, South Dakota. Up next, the ring, 4 entries for Class 721C junior yearling heifers. After this class will be our junior champion heifer selection with our judge, Dr. Scott Shockey, Westmoreland, Kansas. Over on the maintainer side, in the ring at this time is Class 800. All 2017 born calves, January through February, Class 800 in the ring. Here's the results on Class 799D. First place, 1269, TJSC, Lucky Lady, 81 EET, Caitlin Schaub, Wapakoneta, Ohio. Second place, 1268, Maternal Queen, Tanner Cordes from Farmersville, Ohio. And third, 1270, NWSCC Laureate 040E, Sydney Standridge, Denard, Arkansas. 41271, PSC Crescendo 310E, Adelda Ebersole, Kellerton, Iowa. 5th, 1274, Steck Dunk Anita C714E, Morgan Wise, McLuth, Kansas. 6th, 1277, JABR Miss Maternal 705E, Trent Kitchell, Wilburton, Oklahoma. 7th, 1219, Goff Miss Lambo 100 EET, Tristan Monroe, Ada, Oklahoma. In your programs, the placings for Class 799D are as follows: 2, 7, 1. Top of the next page, 3, 4, scratch, 5, 6. As I mentioned in the ring, this is Class 800, January, February 2017 calves, right in front of our Junior Heifer Calf Division I Championship. Our judge, Jeff Jackson from Walnut Springs, Texas.
Well, back over on your maintainer side, once again, another extremely strong class, in my opinion, and I like these cattle all the way to the young man that finishes out your group. Extremely useful kind of females all the way through. For me, though, there's an outstanding class winner, and that's the young man I lead off with. Beginning at the surface, the truest, most honest and athletic in terms of her general build. The sweep to her rib cage is absolutely on point. The robustness and shape she has and the way she hooks up into the backside of her shoulder is ideal. And then the young man gets her stopped, parked, and put together, and it's absolutely lights out in terms of her look. So neat and attractive through her skull, neck, shoulder, and at the base of her chest, and yet fresh in terms of her condition comparatively to the ones in this group. An outstanding class winner in my eyes. The brockle-headed heifer that comes next, she best follows the type and kind of your class winner most directly in terms of structure. The way this one gets out of her shoulder, moves in her hip and hind leg is extra good. I love her flexibility at the ground, especially comparative to the two that follow her. I love her rib shape as well. Compared to your class winner, not quite as neat and attractive as you study her from her throat latch down into her chest floor. I'd like to give her just a shot more length from the point of her shoulder up into her jawline for this one to really be a true competitor in this particular class. On the standstill, my eye is quickly drawn to the young lady's heifer here in third. You talk about one that's big-boned and big-footed, loaded with true and honest shape. So much width in the upper third of her skeleton. I love the shape and the power when you get directly in behind her. What sorts her into third for me is when I set her into motion and I study those back two. She wants to get just a bit rigid. I know part of it comes with the fact she wants to fight the halter, but at times you'll study those back two. She's just not quite as coordinated, not quite as comfortable off of those rear two, ideally, as I would like to see. The young lady's heifer here in fourth, beautiful in terms of her silhouette. She does the same thing, gets just a bit awkward off of those rear two. At times gets just a bit closed up from hock to ground. At times you'll see her want to knuckle up off of those rear two. On the standstill, once again, she best honestly resembles our class winner in terms of look, quality, balance, softness in terms of her center body. Once again, I just like to see her just a bit coordinated off of those rear two for this one to move up any higher in the group. The young lady's heifer that comes next, a long-necked female that's got some shape and some power. I'd like to soften her back to her flank, give her just a bit more angle right at the point of her shoulder there for this one to move up any higher in the group. A big-bodied, soft maternal female comes next. Comparative to those that precede her, gets just a bit frailer in terms of her bone work. I'd like to give her a bigger foot, just a bigger bit column of bone for this one to move up in the group. And the young man's heifer that comes next, I love her length of body, gets just a bit off in her hip, maybe just a bit dry in her rib, comparative to those that precede her. And the young man's heifer we finish out with. I preceded my comments by saying all of these cattle are useful and good in this particular class, and this female's got her good. She's a moderate frame female that's extra powerful and extra stout in her bone work. For me, and compared to her contemporaries, gets just a bit basic in terms of her build, just a bit smaller in terms of her frame size comparatively. Good group of cattle. Congratulations to those.
All right, again, we've got four very nice heifers. Really, performance in terms of weight is not an issue in this class. In fact, I asked the young lady on the end how big she thinks that heifer weighs. She says maybe 15. I'm like, well, I think she soared by that quite a while ago. That's a big old cow on the end, so we're not going to worry about that. I think, again, it's not easy, and we get this class winner stopped. I think she wins easily on the stand. They've kept her very fresh. I like the length of neck. If you kind of look at this one right in behind her blade, her shoulder blade, and the way it lays into her forerib, her depth of heart and natural rib cage that she has, I think is pretty nice. You know, she's a bit ornery to get shown. She fights it, and honestly, not the prettiest on the move. You know, for me, she's got just a little more set to her hock. She has not had much hoof care management. She's a little shallow in her heel anyway, so she doesn't set down quite right, particularly off her hind leg for me, and being ornery like that, it doesn't help matters if you get what I'm saying here. But boy, on the stand, I think it's pretty easy, and again, it's probably more so in the front third of her body is where she beats the heifer here in second. Very, very long-bodied heifer in second. And again, to the point that maybe as we start right in behind her shoulder blade, she doesn't hook it in quite as nice into her forerib, but she's really good in her bone work. She's good enough in terms of structure. I think, you know, again, all these cattle are fine. I'm not going to say any of them are quite have any big problems, but this one here is really, really, really long-bodied, really stout when we get in behind her. I think just a bit more to her than the female we bring here in third. Again, obviously beat the first heifer. I think I'd like to just set her up in her sternum a little bit different. I'd like to give her a little more heart and forerib, maybe elevate her just a bit more at the top of the shoulder like we see in that heifer that beats her. This one here is really pretty about her head. Again, gorgeous shape to her neck. Got a big old baby sitting inside of her, so it really kind of helps that rib, that sweep to her rib. With that, it's also starting to kind of pull her apart right in behind her shoulder. You know, her blades don't set quite right up on the top anyway, and we got that big baby sitting inside, and it's starting to kind of pull out from her top line like that. She just doesn't hold together quite as nice, but I appreciate the fact they got that thing bred. She's starting to look like make an udder and going to make a cow, and going to make a nice cow for that young lady. Again, this is just a big old powerful beast right here. She probably just needs to be freshened up for me, you know, take a little of the extra conditioning out of her. She's got a nice little petite udder in terms of teat structure. You know, she's got tons of muscle and body. Again, just freshness is kind of the big issue we have with her.
Thank you, Dr. Shockey. Up next in the ring for the Charolais will be the junior champion heifer selection. Here's the results on 721C junior yearling heifers. First place, 516, CRG Miss Canada 15D, Nash Hensley, Markoville, Indiana. Second, 512, TR Miss Dottie, 6703 DET, Paisley Grace Carlson, Harrisburg, South Dakota. 513 was third. HFCS Miss Destiny, D109, Haley Holt, Mina, South Dakota. Fourth, 517, BFSC Hot Chick, 641 DET, Caitlin Brown, Canyon, Texas. Once again, first and seconds in the ring. This will be your Junior Heifer Championship with our judge, Dr. Scott Shockey, Westmoreland, Kansas. Over the maintainer females in the ring, this is Division I Championship for the Junior Heifers. Here's the results on Class 800. First place, 1280, KMEM, Porsche ET, Chloe Van Vliet, Otley, Iowa. Second, 1281, TSSC, Coco Chanel, 764E, Katie Mize, North Manchester, Indiana. Third, 1282, BMWC Lucy, 224E, Julia Fry, Johnstown, Colorado. Fourth, 1289, BKMT Exclusive Style, 735 ET, Taylor Dorsey, Eaton, Colorado. Fifth, 1285, Steck Katie, C, 711 EET, Anya McCune, Benton, Kansas. In sixth, 1283, Edel Esperanza, 703E, Whitney Reaver, Glidden, Iowa. Seventh, 1291, BBR Eleanor, 794 EET, Nolan Carlson, Julesburg, Colorado. 8th, 1284, Maury Whiskey, 017E, Austin Joey Dorman, Wright City, Missouri. And your programs of placings for Class 800 are as follows: 1, 2, 3, 6, 8, 5, 4, 7. Division I Junior Heifer Calf Championship in the ring with our judge, Jeff Jackson, Walnut Springs, Texas.
Well, back over on your maintainer side, once again, another outstanding group of class winners and respective seconds in this group. Briefly describe these to you, and we'll go grab you guys a couple champions. The young lady's heifer that comes out of your first class, a bold-centered, neat-necked kind of a heifer, comes out of a single-entry class, one I sure wish had more competition to play with, because that's a nice female. Good in terms of her structure, good-bodied, a nice look up front. The young lady's black heifer that comes next, extra feminine in terms of her look. I love the way she's assembled down through her chest, the flatness to her shoulder, just her general lines and her basic build is absolutely on point in my eyes. I love her femininity up front. Comparatively, she probably doesn't overwhelm you in terms of shape or power or just general width, but I think her basics to her build are extra good. Definitely one that's in contention in this particular lineup. The young lady's red heifer that comes next, one that's built of a different mold compared to the ones that surround her, one that's a bit bigger, longer, more extended in terms of her framework, one that definitely has more weight per day of age compared to the ones that surround her in this lineup. I love her center body, I love her power, and yet a female that still gets out and motors and moves extremely well off all four corners compared to the ones especially that follow her, and even the heifer that precedes her, not quite as feminine and youthful as you study her there, right through her skull, crest of her neck, and right at the point of her shoulder. Loaded with substance, loaded with power, just an ultra big-bodied, stout, extremely powerful kind of a female that comes out of that class. The black heifer that comes next, one that's just extremely fitting from all areas. Sound, big-bodied, has some power, nice in terms of her look. I guess this one probably doesn't have just that extra wow factor, maybe that extra punch as some that surround her in this lineup. But you study this one's parts and pieces, and I love the way she's assembled. So good at the surface, big-bodied and feminine in her look. Like I said, maybe doesn't quite have the wow factor as the ones that surround her in this lineup, but absolutely functional. And once again, her basic build is absolutely on point as well. The young man's heifer that finishes out your lineup, that comes out of your oldest class, I think one that's so intriguing from the side profile, so neat and attractive about her neck, the way she hooks up through the point of her shoulder, the base of her chest, her forerib, her underpinning, yet still having some levelness out into her pins, still having some width. I think she's extremely unique from that look, but maybe the most intriguing factor is when we ask this one to lead, you pull up the halter, and this one is so sound, so agile, and so athletic when you study her when on the move. Once again, an outstanding group of maintainer females here in your first division. If you guys would, and you're standing ringside, let's give this first division of young people a nice round of applause, and I'll go grab you guys a couple champions.
Like I said earlier, when we kind of got started in these bigger cattle, the breds, the yearlings, this is one breed where I really believe they just continue to get better if they're built right, and we have proof right here in front of us. I think we've got an outstanding lineup here in this final division of heifers that I think a guy can sure kind of like. First heifer again, we kind of talked it in class, and I mentioned, I go back to it again, I think about that calf, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think about the design of those two cattle, the way that thing is made up front, absolutely perfect down her top in terms of length and levelness. I love that thing from behind, the way she's made into her pins, her tail head sets in her right. Again, it's so hard, and I'm not telling anybody anything you don't know here. It's so hard to get cattle to have mass and substance and still ladylike, and that thing there does it very, very well, in my opinion. She just looks like a female, and I appreciate that a great deal. Heifer that wins the next class, I'm going to say, is of the three a little more like her in terms of the maternal thing, the smoothness, the neatness. In fact, maybe even a little more so than the heifer that wins that first class. Really smooth-shouldered, nice in her body shape. I like the hip design in her. I think she's really good off her hind leg. I would probably tweak her just a little bit up front. If she sets down, she wants to roll in just a nickel on those front toes. A lot of cattle do that today, and I think probably one of the reasons is we tend to get them a little too fat inside. We kind of open them up in their chest and their front end, and that's kind of how they got to get from point A to point B, kind of rotate that toe in. So that's probably the area I would fix her the most. And I know some would say, well, she's not the power cow, and you're right. She don't probably have quite as much to her as the heifers that stand on either side of her. But again, I think she's very, very maternal looking and certainly very smooth. In the heifer that just won the last class, she might be naturally, in fact, I know she is naturally the stoutest heifer out here. Not blessed with quite the quality of hair on her legs, but if you look at her feet, you look at her bone, her natural width of chest and top and hip, you climb up on top of that one, there's a lot of cow here. Boy, is she a handful to get shown. And again, I'm going to pick on that one's hind leg. With the attitude she has and the way she kind of sets back on her heel and kind of hooks that hind leg up underneath her, she just doesn't hit me near as hard on the travel as the two heifers we have winning the first and second class in this division. But that's a power cow, and yet still, like we said in that class, the reason she wins that class is I thought she was so much nicer up in her neck and her shoulder, the way her shoulder blends into her foreribs. So there's a lot of good in that one as well. Great seconds, but honestly, I think there's just a little more completeness up here on the top end. We're going to keep them 1-2. The heifer that wins the first class will be our champion. The heifer that wins the second class will be reserved in this division. Please give them all a nice hand. That's a great set of Charolais cattle.
Well, back over on your maintainer side, a single entry fall female, and this will be your automatic class winner and champion as well. And a nice female, a femininely designed, good in terms of her growth, a long-bodied heifer in this particular class and division. You like her in terms of her length of body. Might could use just a scotch of body, just soften her up just a shade to make her ideal, but a nice single entry. Congratulations to you.
We got some results to catch you up on here. Want to make sure we don't interrupt our judges when they want to roll, so we'll just keep those going. I'm okay if I'm behind. Here we go for the maintainer females. Your junior heifer calf Division I champion was 1280. That's out of Class 800. KMEM Portia ET Chloe Van Vliet, Otley, Iowa. The reserve champion comes from the same class as your champion. That's 1281 TSSC Coco Chanel 764E Katie Mize, North Manchester, Indiana. In that last class, 802, the single entry, senior heifer calves, first place was 1295, Big Guns Rhonda, and that's also your champion senior heifer calf for Division II. We'll move to class 803, late summer yearling females, July, August, with our judge, Jeff Jackson, Walnut Springs, Texas, on that side of the show ring. And back over on the Charolais side, your grand champion Charolais heifer selection, champion reserves, coming in the ring from each of our divisions. For that selection, our judge, Dr. Scott Shockey from Westmoreland, Kansas. But that last division was the junior division, junior heifer division. And your champion was 503 out of Class 721A. That's AWR BB Queen 527D. Rayleigh Downing, Troy, Texas. The reserve comes from Class 721B. That's 507 WC. Triple C Sweetheart 6350P. Rachel Booth, Miami, Oklahoma. Once again, this will be a grand champion Charolais heifer selection. Our judges, Dr. Scott Shockey, Westmoreland, Kansas, professor at K-State for the past 26 years. They raise Simmental cattle and market both purebred and commercial bulls and heifers. His family includes his wife, Candy. They've been married for 31 years. His son is Shane, and his wife, Melissa, manage an 800-head commercial cow-calf operation in Ray, Colorado. His son, Shiloh, is a junior at KSU. Once again, for this grand champion Charolais heifer selection, our judge from Westmoreland, Kansas, Dr. Scott Shockey.
Well, another outstanding class, the maintainer females, and I'm going to leave these the way they come in. The young man with the white-faced heifer that leads off, just extra feminine in her look, sound in her structure, so good in terms of the way she gets out and move. She's good in her silhouette. I could maybe see just a shot more body in this one to make her ideal. Give her just a bit cowier look as you view her right there through her undercarriage. But once again, I think the blaze-faced female best suits me just in terms of structural integrity, still having some look and some balance. The young man that comes next, a heifer that offers a bit more in terms of shape and power, a bigger bone, bigger footed female, but with all that extra power, maybe just a bit off in her hip. I'd like to set her tail head back and down into her, and she too could maybe be just a bit more coordinated off of those rear two. Nice pair of cattle. Congratulations to each of these exhibitors.
Over on the maintainer female side, here's the results on Class 803 late summer yearling females, July-August. First place, 1298, EFC Miss Mojo, 1937, Jacob Bolter, Weldona, Colorado. Second, 1296, Goff Miss Rebel, 1311, DET, Tristan Monroe, Ada, Oklahoma. Up next, our second class in Division 3 females, summer yearling females for the maintainer. This will be Class 804. 804 coming in the ring next. Judge once again, Jeff Jackson, Walnut Springs, Texas. Real quick, we had a switch on our junior champion heifer. I'll take the blame on that one. Our champion in the ring in first in that class 721A is 504, BRCHE, TR Doherty 6501. So in the ring is Cagney, Effling, Highmore, South Dakota. That was your champion junior heifer. My apologies.
All right, as we come to a close here in our junior show, the Charolais, really been a lot of fun. We start out with an absolutely wolfy calf division, several really good cattle, and like every time when we judge calves, the key to it is to go home and give them the right home, the TLC that it requires. We said that in every one of those classes there was always something good to tie into, but always something just a little bit different. And I've said it several times, this one up here that wins that first class, she's different in a lot of ways. First of all, she's not one of them big, soggy-bellied, fat ones that is a baby. I mean, she still looks like a baby. She looks like a calf. I love that thing at the ground. I love them feet. I like the bone work, and yet still it's clean and it's flat. She handles it well. Sweetheart, you take her home and you make me look good, okay? And again, she could go the other direction. It wouldn't be the first time that it's happened, but you take that one home and give her the right place, and I think that one's going to have a lot of fun next year. The fall heifer really cowy. You know, you step back, you look at that thing's middle third. Again, her design, standing, we said she won that division. We kind of said all those heifers in that division probably could be tweaked on just a little bit structurally, and we see that on her. She just doesn't go with quite the authority on her hind leg, but we get her stopped, and she is a cow. She's got the kind of midrib you like, the hip design that I like. She's got a little extra bone work compared to some of the other cattle out here in this lineup. And so again, take home, turnout cow, that thing there is going to do her a world of good. Probably the heifer that wins the third division, I'm going to just flat call her the most mobile out here. I think that thing is dead on at the ground. She is so good on both ends. You know, all these heifers maybe a little bit on one end or the other, but I think that thing sets them down really good up front. She's really good off her hind legs. She's good in her body depth. You know, there's a lot of things about that when we said in her division that we like quite well. She's probably not the prettiest. You know, when we look at her head, her shape of her neck, she's got a little more depth of neck and chest in her. What kind of helps offset that just a little bit for me is she also has that extra depth of body. She's just a little heavier built in her bone work, and so probably doesn't hit me quite as hard as it has on some of the other cattle we've talked in many of the classes. But again, I do like that one on the move. I could sit around here all day and watch that thing go by me just the way that she travels. Again, the last division champion, just so nice in so many different ways. She's exceptional in length. I love that thing in her top line for a bred. I love that way, the way she's built from hooks to pins. The tail head sits right in her spine. The way she's made from her stifle and down to the ground, I think that thing is just built the way they need to be built. And yet still, you know, has the right kind of body shape, the right kind of hip when we get in behind her, and just very, very ladylike and we get off this side. So there's lots, again, good ones to pick from. The reserves in these divisions, again, we can make a case in point, I think, and especially these two older divisions for me. But I think the one that really hits me the hardest all day long has been this last champion. Let's give her a very nice hand. Congratulations. Well, again, I think it's really these two and the calf that keep hitting me for the reserve. And again, I've always been a pretty big fanatic on structure and soundness, and I just keep thinking about this heifer walking by me every time and how good she is at the ground. Let's give this little fella here a nice hand. He had to work pretty hard to keep her going. Congratulations, buddy. You'll be reserved. You bet.
Well, back on over on your maintainer side, 3 heifers in this particular class, and all 3 are extremely good. They're different, but all 3 are extremely good. The young lady's heifer I lead off with, without a doubt, she's the combination heifer of this particular group, and I like to see this female. She does a lot of neat things, and she's a female that has both power, but yet still has both body and look. And she combines a lot of neat things that sometimes as cattlemen we don't think we can get put together. She's got the right kind of rib shape, she's got the right kind of softness to her structure, and yet she's got an absolutely impeccable look as you view her through her head carriage, the flatness to her neck, shoulder, and at the base of her chest. But what the most unique factor about her is when you step in behind the cattle or step up in front of her, and this female actually has some genuine width as you view her through the base of her chest, the top side of her skeleton, and then you get in behind her, wide, stout, square in her pin set. And when she leaves me with some true width, but yet still some absolute athleticism in terms of her structure. An absolutely outstanding class winner in this particular group. Now, I'll be honest with you, she don't hit me perfect in terms of her frame size. I'd like to give her just a shot more gas in terms of grow, but that one's got so many unique pieces, it's hard not to use that one to win this particular class. As soon as the cattle hit the ring, the chromed up female is one that you really like. So athletic in terms of her general build, so soft and maternal in terms of the sweep to her rib. I love the way her neck sets so high onto the apex of her shoulder. Beautiful in terms of the flatness she has. Neat down through her chest and hooks up in her forerib good. It's when you get in behind her, she's a female that wants to play out in her pin set. She gets awfully upright and flat in terms of her muscularity and her rib shape as well. And you stand up in front of her and you'll get a look of her at times where she wants to have both of those front legs coming right straight out the bottom of her chest out of the same hole. I'd like to give her just a shot more skeletal width, and I think this one would easily overtake the solid black heifer in this particular class. My source of power is, unfortunately, the young man's heifer that comes in third. On the standstill, this one is the big bone, big footed, powerfully constructed heifer of the group. she's still soft and maternal in terms of her rib cage as well. What truly sorts her into third is when you study her up front. She's a bit more masculine as you view her through her head, the shape to her neck, her shoulder, and down at the base of her chest. Once again, loaded with muscularity, loaded with power. She will make an outstanding cow for you, young man. Good trio of females. Congratulations to each and every one of them in this particular class.
Back over on the Charolais side, your grand champion, Charolais heifer for 2018 National Western Stock Show, is out of the junior division, the junior heifer division. It's 504 BRCHE TR Dory 6501 Cagney Effling, Highmore, South Dakota. The reserve grand champion, Charolais heifer 2018 National Western Stock Show, is 497. That's out of class 720B, and your intermediate division, that's KE Wonder Woman ET Kelton Arthur, Stillwater, Oklahoma. Up next in the show ring for the Charolais will be Percentage Charolais Junior Show, Class 722A. As soon as they get done with pictures, I think. Unless we're switching judges, we'll check that. Over on the junior maintainer females in the ring, this will be Division III Championship. First and seconds back in the ring from classes 803 and 804. Results on class 804, early summer yearling female. First place 1304 Healy 832D, Chloe Clark, Muldrow, Oklahoma. Second 1303 BPF Genie 61DET, Cade Van Fleet, Otley, Iowa. Third 1301 CCLT Miss Lily 14D, Leo Reike from McLuth, Kansas. In the ring once again, Division III Championship for the summer yearling female, our judge Jeff Jackson from Walnut Springs, Texas.
As we come to a conclusion here in your third division, of the maintainer females, not many in terms of numbers, but I think tremendous in terms of quality. I'm not going to procrastinate any longer. There's a pair of females that suit me rather well. It'd be the two that comes out of your second class. Congratulations to you, young lady. You'll be our champion. Young man with the chromed up heifer, you'll be our reserve. Congratulations to both of you.
Here's the results on the maintainer females for your champion for Division III, summer yearling female. Champion 1304 comes from class 804. Healy 332D, Chloe Clark, Muldrow, Oklahoma. Reserve was out of the same class as your champion. It's 1303 BPF Genie 61DET, Cade Van Fleet, Otley, Iowa. Next to the ring, we have our next Division 4 junior yearling females. Our first class of 3 is class 805A. 3 entries, class 805A. Once again, our judge, Jeff Jackson, Walnut Springs, Texas. Back over on our Charolais side, we switched judges during this picture time. Moved to the Percentage Charolais Junior Show. Our judge is Dr. Aaron Cooper from San Angelo, Texas, graduate of Texas A&M University. Grew up on a cow-calf and cotton farm. Also was on livestock judging teams. They won the 2004 national champion team at Texas A&M University. Currently, he owns a cattle consulting company called 33 Ventures, LLC, that focuses on Akaushi genetics. Hope I got that right. Also have some cattle ventures overseas. 80% of the clientele are international. Our judge for our Percentage Charolais Junior Show, Dr. Aaron Cooper, San Angelo, Texas. Got a quick announcement here. If you are in earshot, Kathleen Ashoff from Kansas City, Missouri. Kathleen Ashoff, or if you know Kathleen, please tell her to come to the announcer's table immediately. Kathleen Ashoff from Missouri, Kansas City, Missouri. Kathleen Ashoff, please, if you know her, tell her to come to the announcer's table immediately. Thank you. We have something that she definitely wants. Driver's license and some other things. Please come to the table, announcer's table. Thank you.
Well, an outstanding class of maintainer females, but to be perfectly honest with you, there's a clear-cut winner in this particular class, and it's the young lady's black brockle-headed female. You talk about one that's soft and maternal in terms of her center body, female that's neat and attractive and feminine through her front third, good and level in her spine. She's athletic in her build, square, and as you study her there out of her pin set, just an outstanding class winner to win this particular group. Congratulations to you. The young lady's heifer that comes next, not to take anything away from her, because if you study her by herself and individually, here's a powerfully constructed female that's loaded with center body shape. She's neat and attractive through her front third. She's extra feminine as you study her about her head carriage, extra good in terms of her wheels when you view her at the ground. From this angle right here is where you'd like to change her. She wants to get just a bit low tying up front. I'd like to elevate her there through her front third and make her not quite run downhill as much as she does. But once again, another nice female that comes there in second. Heifer in third is long-bodied and high-performing. Gets just a bit hard and dry in her rib cage comparative to those that precede her in this lineup. Good trio of females. Congratulations to each of these exhibitors.
Up next on the maintainer females be Class 805B spring yearling females with our judge Jeff Jackson in Walnut Springs, Texas. Here's the results on Class 805A spring yearling females. First place 1309 Bianca Hadley Dunclow, Wayne, Nebraska. Second 1308 BBR Divine. 671D Ansley Lee Morande, York, Nebraska. And third 1312 MCF Miss Annabelle 10D Wyatt Brown, Tecumseh, Oklahoma. Scratch the class of 1316 at the top of the page. Program placings 213 scratch. 213 scratch. This is 805B spring yearling females born March-April 2016. Judge is Jeff Jackson from Walnut Springs, Texas, owner of Jackson Cattle Company along with his wife Lauren. The Jacksons run a 500 head cow-calf operation in north central Texas that primarily focuses on the production of elite show heifers and commercial bulls along with a small group of show steers each year. He has 6 online show heifer and steer sales annually. And Jeff has judged all over the United States and multiple times internationally. Our judge, Jeff Jackson, Walnut Springs, Texas, for the maintainer females.
Well, once again, another extremely nice pair of females here on the top end of one of your maintainer classes, and I like both of these cattle a good deal. They're different and couldn't be more different than night and day. The young lady's heifer, though, I lead off with one that's so soft in terms of her center body, just an absolute beautiful silhouette. The way she's assembled and constructed up front, the way her neck sets so neatly to the top of the apex of her shoulder, flat in her shoulder, neat in her chest, soft and robust in terms of her rib cage, and just an absolutely immaculate set of feet and legs when you set this one in to go. For me, as you study her udder, I'd like to maybe just see how that's going to mature, how pendulous she may be in her udder. But boy, you talk about one that's got the look, still got power, beautiful structured, so soft and sappy in terms of her center body shape. I think that one's an awfully good one that leads off in this particular class. The heifer that comes next, I think this one's good as well. Her neatest factor, and actually where she beats your class winners when you step right in behind her. This one's truer and more honest in terms of her power from her shoulders back. She's wider, stouter, and square in her pin set compared to your class winner. She just don't have the extra center body shape compared to the one that precedes her, and at times, study that rear off leg. She'll want to come up just a bit short in her stride. An outstanding pair of females. Congratulations to each of these exhibitors.
My apologies on the Percentage Charolais Junior Show. We'll continue with Class 722A and our judge, Dr. Scott Shockey, Westmoreland, Kansas. My apologies. I thought we were in the pictures and we were moving to the other show, so the announcer's always the last to know. Okay, up next in the ring on the maintainer females. Class 806 junior yearling females born January through February 2016. Here's results on 805B, spring yearling females. First place, 1306, SLHT Cleopatra 602D, Sarah Sullivan, Dunlap, Iowa. Second, 1321, MLCK Melania 178D, Aaron Dilger Lawrence, Hebron, Ohio. And the scratch in the class was 1322. Once again in the ring with our judge, Jeff Jackson from Walnut Springs, Texas. This is Class 806 junior yearling females. After this class, Division IV championship. First and seconds back in the ring for that. And then our grand champion junior maintainer female selection.
We start a composite show, and again, only two, but I guarantee if there's 20, these two are still going to be up in the top end of this class. These are both really nice heifers. Again, a little different, but boy, one thing they both share is they're both really high quality. They both have a ton of balance, plenty of body, plenty of muscle. Really, the first heifer just a little nicer right up into the floor of her chest, and the big difference for me is that one just toes ahead enough straighter up front than the heifer we have here in second. We're going to have to just keep a little closer eye on her front feet. From there back, that one's just as powerful and stout as anything you're going to ever show again. So again, that's going to be kind of the challenge on her, but outside of that, I think both these heifers just have a world of good to them. I wish you all the best of luck here in this next upcoming show season.
Up next, the ring. Real quick here for the Charolais of the Class 722B heifer calves with our judge, Dr. Scott Shockey, Westmoreland, Kansas. Here's the results on 722A heifer calves. First place, 521, Miss Ever After 10E ET, Abigail Vargas, Pryor, Oklahoma. Second was 525, Bod Tasha E017, Braxton Filippo from Rush Springs, Oklahoma. The rest were scratches in that class. Once again in the ring, Class 722B heifer calves.
What a nice pair of females here in your maintainer show, and I like both of these a good deal. For me, the young man in the blue shirt that leads off with here, one that's just so good in terms of her structure. As you view her at the ground, the way she gets out of her shoulder, the levelness and the freedom of movement in her top line, the squareness of hip, the agility in her back leg is extra good. So beautiful and refined as you study her about her head carriage, the flatness to her neck and the way she sets it on her shoulder, no chest, big rib, extra fresh in terms of her condition. That's an awfully nice one to lead off with in this particular class. Not to take anything away from the young man's heifer in second, I like this one a lot too. You talk about power and stoutness. She's big boned and big footed, and for one that has this much power and shape, she's actually extremely refined in terms of the scope, the shape, and the size to her teat formation. She's a good headed, good necked female as well. Comparative to the one that precedes her, she offers me just a bit more chest as you study her up front. And when you set her into motion, she's not quite as long and fluid in terms of her stride, one on the go. Two excellent females, in my opinion. Congratulations to each of these exhibitors.
Here's the results on the maintainer females. For Class 806, first place, 1323 BPF, Yissy 44 DET, Marcus Van Voris, Bowling Green, Ohio. Second, 1325, Han R. Lady Agnes 605, Grayson Belcher, Bloomfield, Indiana. The scratch was 1326. Up next, Division 4 champion junior yearling selection. Judge with Jeff Jackson, Walnut Springs, Texas. There'll be first and seconds in the ring from classes 805A, B, and 806. After this division championship, we'll have our grand champion junior maintainer female selection. Over on the Charolais side, coming in the ring, 722B heifer calves. 722B is coming in the ring now.
Well, what a good lineup of maintainer females in your spring heifer division. Briefly describe these three class winners to you. The young lady's brockle-headed heifer that leads off with just absolutely immaculate in terms of her structure. A big-bodied kind of a heifer that's powerful in her build. A female that's neat and attractive as you view her right through her skull. The flatness to her neck, the flatness to her shoulders, absolutely on point. And I just couldn't imagine this young lady doing any better job of sticking this female. My hat's off to her on getting her stuck and put together. Comparative to the ones that follow, maybe you could lean up just ever so slightly right in her chest floor, but yet with that she still balances very nicely back into her center body. Her hip and her hind leg are absolutely on point as well. Once again, I think it goes without saying a female that's without a doubt in contention in this particular lineup. The young lady's heifer that comes next, if you want to talk about one that has the look, without a doubt, it's her. The way she's assembled in the front third of her skeleton, the flatness to her shoulder, the freshness at the base of her chest, her center body shape, and yet still has an immaculate set of feet and legs. A heifer that's got some power in the upper third of her skeleton, and then we can all see she's starting to form an udder underneath her as well. And the young lady stops and gives you that look right there. It's absolutely lights out in terms of quality as you view her from the side. The young man's heifer that comes out of your third class, my comments to him on keeping one this big bred and mature this fresh. Her flatness to her neck, how neat she's assembled at the base of her chest, the freshness in her undercarriage, and the way she is around her pone and tail head is absolutely spot on, and I sure commend you on that. Formation is forming a nice, beautiful udder underneath her, soft-ribbed and beautiful in terms of her structure when you set this one into motion. The way she gets out of her shoulder and hip and hind leg are absolutely spot on from that respect. As you compare her to the two that precede her, maybe she doesn't offer quite as much just in terms of general width and power. She's not quite as stout-boned and big-footed as the two that precede her, but I like this one's type and kind. Beautiful silhouette, soft-bodied, and super good in terms of her structure. To our respective seconds, a tremendous amount of quality in each and every one of those as well. I'm sure each and every one of you have your favorites. If you would, please, let's give this division a nice round of applause, and I'll go grab you guys a couple champions.
Well, certainly in our composite class here, you've got one for everybody, and probably for me too, that are just a little more on the, I'm going to say maternal, and you can take that however you want. But as I think about cows, to just kick out and have the right kind of pieces to make cows, I think we have that in these first two. Obviously, this first one's quite a bit further along today in terms of her body, her depth. I like the way she gets out of her front end. She don't have the prettiest hind leg. You know, it's functional, and there's going to be a lot of people that are going to pick on that one's hind leg at the show ring, but I guarantee you, I bet she never goes unsound because she's got some give and some flex to it. So that's the biggest thing I'd fix on her. You know, outside of that, she sure got enough mama cow look to her because of her smoothness, her depth, and the extra length that she has. This one here in second's really pretty green yet, and yet as we look at her skeleton, I think there's a lot of good, especially off her hind leg. I like the way she sets down on a nice foot. She's good in her flexibility in her joints. Keeps her hip in her right as she goes, extra length of body to her. Again, we go ahead and get this one a little further along, and she matures and bodies down. I think she'll just continue to get better. She's got a little extra navel, a little higher in her tail head, maybe some little things like that you'd sure like to change, but I think she's fundamentally just pretty daggone good. This one's interesting. Again, maybe not so much my kind. We can probably take her to a lot of prospect shows, and there'll be people just do and goo all over her because she is good looking, got a big old hip in her, lots of bone, but for me, she just doesn't really fit breeding cattle type in my mind quite like the first two, so you can slide her wherever you want here in the lineup. If you want to switch him because this heifer here in fourth has got more length and body to her, I would never disagree. Probably for me, she's just a little out of balance at a young age with her extra chest that she has. Gets a little tangle-legged when you watch her go from behind, but that's a good, useful kind of a cow prospect as well.
Let's go back over for the division championship. Division 4 champion junior yearling female for the maintainer females. Your champion comes from Class 805B, 1306 SLHT, Cleopatra 602D, Sarah Sullivan, Dunlap, Iowa. Reserve champion junior yearling female Division 4, 1309, Bianca out of Class 805, that is 805A, Hadley Dunklow, Wayne, Nebraska. Up next, we'll bring back our champ reserves from each of our divisions. This will be the grand champion junior maintainer female selection with our judge Jeff Jackson from Walnut Springs, Texas. Back over on the Charolais side of the show ring. Up next, 722C heifer calves. Here's the results on 722B. First place, 529, Conley Nancy E1, Finley Yoakum, Sapulpa, Oklahoma. Second, 532, Schrader Hammer Blondie, Weston Schrader, Wells, Kansas. Third, 531, AMD Miss Cleopatra 7014, McKenna Tucker from my hometown of Briggsdale, Colorado. Fourth place, 530, Spur Miss E0002, Chastain Spiller from Elbert, Colorado. The scratch in the class was 528. Into programs and placings for the Charolais 722B, scratch, top of the next page, 1432. Up next, as I mentioned, this is Class 722C heifer calves. Our judge, Dr. Scott Shockey, Westmoreland, Kansas. Back over to the maintainer females, your grand champion, junior maintainer female selection, our judge, Jeff Jackson, as I mentioned, from Walnut Springs, Texas, owner of Jackson Cattle Company, along with his wife, Lauren. The Jacksons run a 500-head cow-calf operation in north central Texas that primarily focuses on the production of elite show heifers and commercial bulls, along with a small group of show steers each year. He has 6 online show heifer and steer sales annually as well. He's judged all over the United States and multiple times internationally. Our judge for this grand champion selection, Jeff Jackson, Walnut Springs, Texas.
Well, as we come to a conclusion here in your maintainer show, I just like to begin by saying hats off to you breeders and guys ringside that get these cattle put together and help find these cattle for these young people. As a breeder myself, like I said, my hat's off to you guys at getting assembled an extremely good set of maintainer females I've sorted through today. The young man's heifer that comes out of your first class, I think it goes without saying, one that's extremely good. So good in terms of her structure. She come out of an extremely strong and extremely deep calf division, and yet for me this one surfers to the top rather handedly. Beautiful in terms of her silhouette, so good at the base of her chest, soft ribbed and good in her top line, and yet her freedom of movement is just absolutely excellent. The way she gets out of her shoulder, her hip and hind leg are absolutely on point. I think an absolute female that's absolutely so unique in terms of the way she's put together, to have that much look, that much softness of body, and yet have a high quality set of feet and legs and hoof underneath her. That's an awfully good one in my eyes that comes out of your calf division. The young lady's heifer that comes out of your second division, long bodied and high performing. I think compared to those around her, one you could sure soften in her body cage and body shape just a bit. The one that comes out of your third division, once again, I think another unique female in her own right. My comments in class and division on her were, this one proves a lot of things, that you can have cattle with power and yet ask them to still get out and move and ask them to still have a high quality look. And that female represents that to a T. Soft ribbed, good structured, powerful, and such an intriguing look from the side. I talked about her there in class. You might view her as one that's just a nickel small in terms of her frame size and where she hits you there, but at the same time, it's hard to build them with this much quality in terms of look, balance, body, and structure. That's an awfully nice one out of your third division. And the heifer that comes out of your last division, once again, another deep, another high-quality division that was good in terms of numbers, and yet this one still surfaced to the top for me. To have that much bone and foot, yet still be that elegant about the front third of her skeleton and the way she sets that onto the apex of her shoulder, so fresh as you view her down through her chest, her underpinning, and around her tail head. Female's got a teat formation starting to form in her, soft-bodied, and yet a female you get in behind her still works some shape there in her upper third. Just an absolutely intriguing class winner and division winner that comes out of your last group. If you guys would, please, let's give your maintainer exhibitors a nice round of applause, and I'll go grab you guys a couple champions.
Told the young lady here in third she happened to pick the toughest class of the day, only three, but three really nice heifers, and there's no doubt in my mind, just in quality right here, you've got three of the very finest ones to look at. And again, I can just as easily see them being flipped around different directions. In fact, I told the young man with this heifer in second, once this heifer ever gets her head in the game and kind of figures out how to be a show animal and just relax, that one's going to be pretty nice. I think her problems we see in her today is more mental, and she's wanting to kind of shorten up in her stride and just fight him too much. And so, but again, I'm not going to say I don't like this one, because I do like this one right here. She is a good-looking thing, so nicely made up in her neck and her chest, beautiful in the turn to her rib. All those things is pretty easy. Anybody can see that. I maybe would change her just a nickel out of her front. I think as we set her down and we watch her go, she could square up a little bit more in her front toes and change the angle just a little bit. But again, very trivial. I think that's an excellent heifer. And those two, in terms of kind, upheadedness, alertness, neck shape, they're a lot more alike than the silver heifer here in third. Like I said, there's some things in the heifer in second, and I think once we get her kind of right structurally, she's going to be pretty good. I like the angle of her shoulder. There's a little more extra length of hip in her. She sets her tail head in her a little bit nicer than the one that wins the class. And I'm just going to bet if we pull that halter off her and let her go, she moves pretty daggone nice. Out here in the show ring, she tightens up, she shortens up in her step, and again, I think that's probably maybe just mentally more than it is in her structure. First rib back, I like this heifer a great deal. That is the stoutest. She's got a big back, big square hip and pin set in her. She's strong off her hind leg. Maybe change her just a little bit. With that extra dimension from behind comes a little bit more shoulder. The two things I think as I look at her and we kind of study her, she doesn't get her neck up quite as nicely out of her shoulder. She's not shaped quite as good in her front feet. But again, there's just so much value in that one to take home and make into a cow. That's a great class of heifers.
And your grand champion, junior maintainer female for the 2018 National Western Stock Show, comes out of Division 3. That is Healy, 332D, Chloe Clark,